Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining our very first Business Mastery event. People have registered from all over the world and we're hugely proud to have 502 people registered. We had no idea that would be the take up when we brainstormed this idea 6 weeks ago, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. My name's Derek Arden, I'm your MC, I'm your host, and I'm a speaker today, and I'm in Guildford in Surrey, and that's the high street behind me. And I'm a Londoner. I was born 5 miles away from Bow Bells, and that's doesn't qualify me to be a Cockney, but as you know, a Cockney is someone that's born within London. But if you'd like me to do some of my Cockney accent at some stage, I'd be delighted to do that. Now, I want to quickly introduce our guest speakers tonight. People I have, and this morning for people in California, I do apologize. First of all, we have Graham Jones from the University of Buckingham. Give everybody a wave, Graham. Patricia Fripp from San Francisco, California, but uniquely from Wimborne, Dorset as well. Gabrielle Gachet from Hampshire in the UK, but again, uniquely from Gibraltar. Which is a UK protectorate, but is on the edge of Spain, on the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. And finally, Tim Durkin from Granbury, Texas, 80 miles from Dallas. I'm so excited that everybody's agreed to join us, and thank you all for coming on. You might be interested to know how this event came about. Well, Graham and I consult and do a lot of business with international companies all over the world. And we decided about 3 years ago that once every 6 months, we would meet and host an event for professionals and leaders who perhaps didn't have the opportunity to go on management and leadership courses. And we would make this event free, although we would charge people who could afford to pay it. And we've done 4 of those so far, 4 or 5, I think, Graham. And we were due to do 2 in 2020. And we had people booked from China, from Bulgaria, from Slovenia, but sadly, we had to cancel that. So we decided to do a Zoom conference, seminar, webinar, whatever we can call it. And this is the outcome. We never thought we would have 502 people joining us, and we are delighted to have you with us. You can expect to get lots of tips from us. We are all interested in education and particularly sharing the tips and learning points that we have learned as lifelong learners. If you take away one thing from today and put it into effect, and make your business more effective, your life more effective, that will be absolutely brilliant. We expect you to take away up to 25 tips and topics, and we'd love to know at the end how many you actually take away. So this is our holiday gift to you. We're not charging for this at all, but one thing we would ask you, when we had our rehearsal, we talked about how many people are using food banks all around the world. And in affluent places in the UK, affluent places in the US, it is surprising how many people, sadly, have to use food banks. So we would ask you, if you would like to put something in your food bank on behalf of us for giving you this complimentary seminar. So with no more ado, you don't want to hear from me anymore. I'm going to hand you over to Paul Griffin. Paul is our operations director, monitoring this seminar, running this seminar from behind the scenes, and he's in Macon in Georgia. Over to you, Paul.
Well, it's actually Macon, but close enough. It's Macon, France. But so there will be 3 interaction methods with the presenters throughout the event. You can enter your short, specific questions in the Q&A section, which is located at the bottom right of the meeting window on the PC or computer, or the upper right-hand corner if you're joining us on your iPad or iPhone. Additionally, if you have any questions that are not directly related to the content being discussed, you can enter those short, specific questions in the chat box, which is located either in the bottom center of your screen or in the upper right-hand corner of the iPad or iPhone app. If you wouldn't mind, please include the name of the presenter your question is for on the first line of your question, similar to addressing an email. And the chat, as mentioned, is between the panelists and the attendees only, just to cut down on distraction. In addition, the third method will be polls throughout the call, and each poll will remain on the screen for approximately 60 seconds. So please select your vote when you see the poll, click submit, and then we'll discuss the results of the poll periodically. So I'm going to put the first two polls up on the screen right now, and this is just to get to know our audience a little better. And while those polls are going, I will turn it back over to Derek.
Thanks very much, Paul. And what's the weather like in, I'm scared to say it, Macon, Georgia at the moment?
Close enough. It's actually very similar to London in that the temperature is very close. I don't know the conversion to Celsius because, you know, American, but it's very similar except just less rain.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, thanks, Paul, for what you're doing behind the scenes. We couldn't do this without your help. Now, we have two exciting lightning rounds of 5 minutes each from all 5 speakers on strategy, tactics, and ideas for you going forward into 2021. And the first session is from Tim Durkin. Tim Durkin's in Granbury, Texas, and let me introduce Tim. For over 25 years, Tim has developed leaders that deliver exceptional results in the most challenging times like now. He is the former academic director for the Southern Methodist University, SMU for you Americans, he says, and the Edwin Cox School of Business and Executive Education. I've known Paul for over 14 years. He's a fantastic speaker and a great source of knowledge. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. And what advice would you give us on mental management?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that I hope nobody came here today to learn strategies, tactics, and secrets in order to crush your personal and professional goals in 2021. But I do hope that you came here today to learn and apply strategies, tactics, and secrets that will in fact help you crush your goals in 2021. The reason that I talk about that is that the path to mastery requires only 4 steps. And I want to go over those 4 steps with you. First step is information. It's the training, it's information that you are provided. It's the tips, the tools, the techniques, the strategies, the tactics, and the secrets that you will learn today. That job of information is on us 5. The second step after information is application of that information. You're going to be getting, as Derek said, probably 25 tips or more that will help you reach your personal and professional goals. Now, what you probably can't take all 25 at once, but which are the ones that resonate with you the most? Which are the ones that seem to have the most utility for you right now? That's the one that you should, those are the ones, excuse me, that you should be applying right now. The key is application. The third step is confirmation. And confirmation is simply the evaluation of the application. How did it work? How well did it work? And the best way to handle confirmation is to ask yourself or have somebody, a trusted advisor, ask you, with regard to the application, what went great? What was great about it? Second question is, what was good about it? And the third is, what do you need to improve? The final step is consultation. And that means that I would suggest, if the application is important enough for you, like speaking skills or presentation skills, that you hire a coach or work with a coach for the consultation part. Or if that's not possible for you, why don't you bring in a friend who will tell you the truth, and or a trusted business colleague. That's the way that you can see how you're doing from a third perspective, the third person perspective. Now, believe it or not, Many studies out there talk about the fact that when there is group learning involved, 90% of the attendees do not apply anything that they've learned. Now, if you do apply anything you learned today, you are going to have a tremendous competitive advantage. So I encourage you in the application phase. The great Roman philosopher and Stoic, Seneca, once said, "Nothing of value can be learned by sitting. To become better, action is required." And he went on to say, action is truth. Now, those 4 steps again: information, what we're providing today; application, that's on you; confirmation, yourself with a trusted friend; consultation with a coach. Thanks very much. Back to you, Derek.
Tim, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And I was just thinking that that's the key that opens the door to people's success, taking action. Now we're going to move on to our second.
Derek, if I interject, let's tell the audience that although they probably saw the results from the polls, it's funny because at the beginning when we were chatting, you were concerned, will some of our audience who is younger think we are fuddy-duddy for wearing ties and jackets? Paul, tell everybody how many people on this call are under 40.
6%.
Yes, so I am sure most of our audience respects that you dressed up, Derek and Tim, and the result of the makeup of our audience.
We have 19% entrepreneur, 18% professional speaker, 6% sales, 16% corporate leaders, 3% retired, and a majority 37% lifetime learner.
Now that means they could well be in one of the other categories as well, considering themselves a lifetime learner. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, Derek, back to you.
Thanks, Patricia. And that's collaboration between California and Surrey in England. And that's how it works. And that really does work as a win-win. Fabulous teamwork. Thanks, Patricia. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Gabrielle Gachet. Gabby, as I know her, is in Hampshire in the UK, but Gabby was born in Gibraltar, as I said. Gabby is a master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, the art and science of excellent, as I describe it, and there's lots of definitions of it, a business coach and a certified financial advisor. And Gabby works with directors of large international companies, both in the UK and in Europe, to coach, mentor them and improve their skills. Welcome, Gabby. And your title is, you are the interior designer of your mind. So I'm fascinated by that.
You are indeed. Welcome, everybody. Leonardo da Vinci said the average human being looks without seeing, listens without hearing, touches without feeling, eats, just seeing Patricia have a drink there, eats without tasting, moves without physical awareness, inhales without awareness of odor or fragrance, and talks without thinking. Our brains and our minds are fantastic, and they have an immense capacity. But how effective are we at using them? Are you getting the best results from your mind? Unfortunately, when we're born, we have no user manual. And I have to say, as a kid, I was a lazy so-and-so, as I was regularly told by my mum and my dad. And I just wanted to be the most effective to get from A to B with minimum effort. Now, Leonardo da Vinci is one of my heroes, and he also talks about the art of science and the science of art. And I've used this to get from A to B throughout my life, to learn how to pass exams, to learn how to ski, to get a promotion, and in the last 30 years, how to build a business and run a business. And whenever you're creating, that is art. So what is it that you want to achieve now or in 2021? Write it down, make sure that you know exactly what it is. And I'm just going to refer to it as it or this, but have a phrase or a word for it. Because if you are serious about making this happen for you, there are some design enhancements that you might want to consider. I talk about well-formed outcomes, and basically it's looking at what is it that you have, that you want. Some questions for you then. What are the positive outcomes of you doing this? You start to consider that, it will enrich your goal. Going back to Leonardo, if you achieve it, what will you be seeing in yourself, in your family, in your customers, in your clientele? What will you be hearing again from yourself? What will you be hearing from your audience? What will you be feeling? What will they be feeling? How do you want them to feel? How will the stakeholders feel? What will you be tasting? Will it leave a bittersweet taste, or will it be beautiful? And what will people be talking about and thinking about as a result of this? Then consider, how do you start? Once you've started, how do you maintain it? And what tests are you putting in to ensure that you are on track in the right direction? Next question, is it ecological? Could it be more ecological? And what are the positive byproducts of you achieving it? Because that again will enrich your offering and may even create more opportunities for you going forward. What resources do you need? A lot of people think of money or website, but actually it could be time, it could be people, it could be stuff. Think about and consider exactly what resources are going to be useful for you. Is now the right time? And if not now, then when? And where is the right place to start? You might want to start small and do pilots and move into other areas. And most importantly, what would the side effect be if you did nothing and you didn't go for this? Because that will create the momentum for you to either get there or not. And as you upgrade your thinking about what your goal is, you will upgrade your outcome. So start making notes, start building your picture to create the interior design and the exterior design of your future. Thank you. Back to you, Derek.
Fantastic, Gabby. Thank you very much. You reminded me about mind mapping. I'll talk about mind mapping a bit later. You also reminded me of some discussions that we have amongst the five of us about the use of language, the use of the word stuff, loads of, and I know that when I did my NLP training, they used the word stuff so many times that I caught the disease, and I'm having trouble even now getting rid of it. But thank you for reminding me of that. And it's so important to write things down. And I know Graham might tell us that you increase the neurons in your brain, I think, Graham, when you write things down in your own handwriting. But I'm probably stealing some of your material, so I'll apologize for that. I know I normally do. Let me introduce Graham Jones to you, who comes next. Graham's a psychologist who specialized in the understanding of how people behave online. He's a consumer behavior specialist and is a lecturer at the University of Buckingham in the UK, where he is the program director for the business enterprise degree. And I went up there for lunch with him about a year ago. And what he didn't tell me was he promised the audience that I was going to do a half-an-hour session straight after lunch. He told me that over the sweet and the coffee. So welcome, Graham. Thanks for joining us yet again to talk about what we know beyond the internet.
Thanks, Derek. I wonder who taught me how to negotiate a free half hour from a speaker. I must have learned negotiating from somebody. And thank you for Patricia for mentioning the people wearing ties and obviously not mentioning my name, but that's because I must be under 40. And or is it that I've spent the last 25 odd years working with the internet? So obviously I am down with the kids. So, but one of the things that we are all using at the moment, obviously, we're all online at the moment. And as Tim said, everybody is getting information and we spend a lot of our time on the internet looking for information. And one of the things that Gabby was talking about was that kind of, when she said that kind of pause at the beginning to write down your objectives, to actually stop and think. And one of the things the internet has done to us all over the last 25 years is to stop us pausing to think. And so one of the big problems for business as a whole is that everything is at a rush because of the internet. It actually makes you want to do things more quickly. And there's lots of data about the way we all use the internet. So I can guarantee you spend an hour of your day achieving absolutely nothing. And that's not my data, that's Google's data. Google's data shows us that 1 hour every day, you search for stuff online in their search engine and do nothing as a result of it. You don't even click on the results that you get. And so you think you're doing it, but you're not. And when we observe people actually doing this, you can see that they think they're doing one thing, but they're actually doing another. A lot of what we do online is an illusion. You think you're very busy. You're not busy at all because you're spending an average of 3 hours a day moving emails about. So 4 hours of your day is no longer productive. Economists have struggled for many years now to work out why we're not productive. We're not productive. Our productivity should be 20% above where it is now. And it has flatlined for most of the world simply because of the internet in the last decade. We think we're working, we're not working. We're doing things, we're searching for things and not doing that kind of stuff. We are not pausing, we're not thinking, we are just doing, and it gives our brains a sense of activity, but that activity is not productive. And for those salespeople who are on the call, just think about how we measure what's going on. For those speakers on the call who are using social media to try and grab people and get people to pay attention to them, they're using social media, they're on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, sending messages out, and then they get these lovely analytics back saying, all these people liked me, all these people shared it, and they can glow in the glory of how marvelous the data is. But it's an illusion. It's just data for data's sake. I was at a business a year or two ago and saved them £25,000 by just stopping the meeting to analyze data that they did nothing as a result of. So here's the problem. We're surrounded by data. It makes us think we're working. Emails and everything else makes us think we're being productive. Your brain is constantly doing things and your brain loves that and you think you're working. But there's only one thing that the internet is going to do. For those of you in business, for those of you who are seeking to use social media to gain things, the only measure that you have to make is, do I get a sale as a result of what I've done? Don't measure anything else. It's sales that matter for those in business. And if you're not in business, if you are in, say, a charity, it's, do I get extra donations? So we are measuring the wrong things. We're not productive. And it's because the internet is fooling us into thinking that we are doing stuff rather than doing, as Gabby has said, pause, sit, think, write down your objectives and work to those. Back to you, Derek.
Thanks, Graham. And I hope everyone's taking notes because, Graham, you told me, didn't you, that the neurons in the brain get wider the more we write in our own handwriting. That is actually correct, isn't it?
It's the axons that get wider. So that's the bit that connects one end of one nerve cell to the other. So it lays down more myelin. And more myelin you have, that's white matter, that makes you think better.
Brilliant. And therefore you can take your tie off and be pretty relaxed and not put
Yep.
a suit on for teaching at
Yep.
University of,
and pretend that you're under 40.
yeah. Our standards have dropped. What a sad situation, but what fun. Now it's my pleasure to switch to California, to San Francisco in California, to Patricia Fripp. I know a lot of people here know Patricia, and Patricia's going to talk about increasing sales and our results. But let me tell you just a little bit about Patricia. Companies hire Patricia to help them drive more business by perfecting their sales conversations and presentations, the use of language. In 2019, Patricia was named one of the top 30 women in sales and one of the top 30 global gurus. No pressure of being named that, Patricia. Over to you in San Francisco.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I am now totally depressed and realize that I should be canceling my director of social media and her assistant. But what I would like to know is, will the people in the chat please write if they heard of this webinar from social media, from one of our newsletters, just as a matter to analyze how people got to be on the call, because social media is one way I use to promote what somebody would laughingly call me the legacy that is Fripp. Anyway, my first number one suggestion picks up on marketing. And I learned this when I was 23 years old, working for Jay Sebring, who was the Hollywood hairstylist. When no one else was talking about men's hairstyling, Jay Sebring was in Playboy. This is Newsweek magazine. He was cutting hair, George Peppard's hair for the Blue Max. But what I realized at 23 years old, when Jay Sebring said that we have one gimmick, the best haircut in town, but he said it to all these publications. And he said, once Herb Cain, our local popular columnist, writes that I'm in San Francisco, the phone will ring off the hook, and it was. So my best advice is, it doesn't matter how good we are. The world has to know about it. And that's when I became what I would call a shameless self-promoter. When it comes to our promotion, and perhaps this ties into what Graham and Gabby are saying, but it's a matter of focus. With our efforts, we have to start and we don't stop. They have to be ongoing, consistent, and relentless. However, what I do believe Graham would agree is a good use of time is to revisit what you're saying about yourself, refocus what it is that you are focusing your efforts on. For many years, I was a speaker. I still speak at conferences, but I focus that I am a speech coach and sales trainer, and you rescript how you talk about what you are doing. My second quick, short piece of advice, my best suggestion, and without a doubt, this, if you are a coach or a consultant, or perhaps even a realtor, you are selling your expertise. I have what I call a free pretend you already hired me call. This is what I call, I sell by doing, not by telling. If I can have a Zoom conversation with someone where you can see people, it's much better than a phone call. And I say, well, if we were locked in a room together, what presentation would be working on? So one, refocus, rescript, revisit how you're promoting yourself, and you need a conversation. You cannot negotiate an email. Pretend you hired me or pick my brain, whatever you want. With that, back to you, Derek.
Well, it's actually over back to you, Patricia, to
That's right, because
so that,
it is my job to introduce Derek, because a moderator can't introduce themselves. So companies hire Derek to help them with their critical negotiations. He also delivers keynotes and workshops on negotiating, persuading, and influencing. He is the best-selling author of Win-Win: How to Get a Winning Result from Persuasive Negotiations. And he will discuss some of his 7 secrets of win-win negotiating.
thanks, Patricia. That's very kind of you, and it's also very kind of you to host this webinar behind the scenes. So that's absolutely brilliant. Now, we decided that we would show you today how you can use virtual media. You can use slides, you can talk, or you can use a flip chart. And I'm a great believer in flip charts. I've always loved flip charts. So I got my flip chart here that's in my office, and it always is. So I'm able to demonstrate that